The months passed, and the memory of that night slowly began to fade. The TV remained untouched, a silent sentinel to the terror they had faced. They had told no one, fearing ridicule, or worse, that someone else would stumble upon the cursed game and unleash the digital demon. But a year later, a strange craving for nostalgia overcame Brandon. He couldn't resist the allure of the old NES games, the simple yet addictive charm that had captured his imagination as a child. In a dusty corner of his room, he found an old Super Mario Bros. 2 cartridge. The image on the label was unlike any he had seen before. It depicted a twisted, grotesque version of Mario, with rotted flesh hanging from his bones and black pits where his eyes should have been. A shiver ran down his spine, but he couldn't deny the morbid curiosity that gripped him. Was this a twisted prank? Or a forgotten relic of a darker time in gaming history? Ignoring Mike's warnings, Brandon plugged the cartridge into his retro gaming system, his heart racing. The game booted up, the colors and sounds of the Mushroom Kingdom filling the room once more. But something was off. The colors slightly duller, the music a discordant twist on the original's cheerful tune. The game played normally, almost too normally, until he reached the first boss stage, a nightmarish version of Birdo, the pink dragon from his youth. It spit eggs that hatched into tiny, screaming Marios, their eyes glowing with the same malevolent light he remembered from that fateful night. He took a deep breath, his thumbs poised on the controller, and stepped into the fray. As he defeated the twisted creature, it shrieked, its eyes fading to black. The game flickered, and for a brief moment, he could have sworn he saw the demonic Mario watching from within the screen, its smile widening, eager for the next challenge. Brandon felt a cold hand clamp down on his shoulder. Mike's face was a mask of horror. "You shouldn't have done that," he whispered. The TV's static grew louder, the room's edges blurring. The floorboards creaked, and the walls bulged as if something was pushing through from another dimension. Brandon's heart skipped a beat. Had they unleashed something even more terrifying than before? The game's world began to glitch around them, the screen distorting and pulsing with an unnatural energy. The door to the apartment slammed shut, the lock clicking into place. The air grew colder, the lights dimming as if in response to the game's power growing stronger. "We have to finish this," Brandon said, his voice shaking. "We can't let it take us again." They steeled themselves, ready to face whatever nightmares the game had in store. They were no longer just players in a video game. They were the only defense against a digital monster that had invaded their lives. As they continued through the warped levels, each stage grew more disturbing than the last. The familiar characters of the Mushroom Kingdom were now twisted reflections of themselves, their cries for help echoing through the game's corrupted code. Brandon felt a knot in his stomach, the weight of his decision to play the game heavy upon him. The final boss loomed before them, a towering beast that was somehow both Bowser and the demonic Mario from the first game. Its digital eyes bored into Brandon's soul, and he knew that this time there would be no easy escape. They had to win, for their sake, and for all those who might stumble upon this cursed game in the future. They had to break the cycle of fear and terror that had been set into motion by that fateful garage sale purchase. With a deep breath, Brandon looked to Mike, who nodded solemnly. They were in this together, and they would conquer the digital hell that had invaded their reality. The battle began, the air crackling with energy. The beast roared, and the walls of their apartment trembled in response. The fight was intense, their hearts pounding in their chests. Each hit they landed on the creature caused the room to shake, the very fabric of their world threatening to tear apart. The demonic Mario was unforgiving. Each blow he dealt sending shockwaves through the floorboards, but they were determined. For every pixelated piece of themselves that was lost, they fought back with a ferocity born of desperation. Then, without warning, the game glitched, and Birdo appeared before them, crying pools of pixelated tears. The sight was heartbreaking, a stark contrast to the fear that had driven them this far. The creature looked up at them, its digital eyes pleading. "You can stop this," it croaked, the sound of a dying computer chip. Before they could react, the demonic Mario shoved his fingers into Birdo's eyes, and there was a horrifying squishing and popping sound. The screen flickered, the room darkening for a moment. The walls trembled as Birdo's lifeless body slumped to the ground, her digital blood seeping into the floorboards. This sick, twisted game has gone on long enough, Brandon thought, his anger fueling his resolve. They launched themselves at the creature, dodging its fiery breath and hammering away with all their might. Each hit landed with a satisfying crunch, the game's code screaming in protest. The creature stumbled back, its smile now a snarl of rage. It lashed out, and in a move that seemed to defy the very laws of physics, it ripped Birdo's head off and began to mutilate her body. Brandon's stomach turned, bile rising in his throat, but he couldn't look away. The creature was feeding off their fear, growing stronger with each second that ticked by. "We can't let it win," Mike shouted over the cacophony of the game's twisted sounds. They had to find a way to break the game's hold on reality, to banish the monster back to the hellish code it came from. The room grew colder, the walls closing in around them as the demonic Mario opened its mouth wider than any creature could. It devoured Birdo's head with a wet, crunching sound that seemed to echo in Brandon's very soul. The TV screen flickered again, and for a moment he swore he saw the real world bleed through. A glimpse of a world where the game's evil had no power. With newfound strength, Brandon and Mike redoubled their efforts, attacking the creature with everything they had. They dodged, they jumped, they fought with a unity that had been forged in terror. The beast roared, its pixels stretching and distorting, a digital monstrosity that threatened to consume them whole. But then, something changed. The creature staggered, a glitch in its otherwise flawless movements. "We're doing it!" Brandon yelled, hope sparking in his voice. "We're going to beat this thing!" The room grew brighter, the walls of the apartment fading away to reveal the cold, digital emptiness of the game's code. They had pushed it to its limits, and now they had to finish it. With one final, desperate leap, they struck the creature's core, and it shattered into a million pixels that swirled around them like a tornado of despair. The world grew quiet, the TV screen fading to black. The room felt empty, the power of the game dissipating, like a bad dream. A had won, but at what cost? The nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning to reveal its true form. Later that year, Brandon received the news that Mike had died suddenly from a heart attack. He couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a tragic coincidence. The demonic Mario's final taunt echoed in his mind, a chilling reminder of the digital world that had bled into their lives. The game had claimed its first victim, and he knew he was next. The apartment remained untouched, the TV a silent sentinel to the horrors they had faced. Brandon couldn't bring himself to play another Mario game. The thought of the digital hell they had encountered still too fresh in his memory. He tried to bury the fear, to convince himself it was all in his head. But the whispers of the game, the faint echoes of that twisted music, never truly left him.